I'm like, dude, if you're in escrow and this lender is still trying to figure out why there's no mortgage insurance, you need to switch ASAP. Like, that's a problem. What I'll do is I'll pull the title of that property. Let's say I went in there, they had American flags, they're very patriotic. I'll get the name, I'll plug into Spazio, they'll give me their social media, everything, and then I'll tie to see if there's a veteran in there. And if there is, I'm like, dude, done deal. Everything is a strategy in this business, bro. Like, I mean, people think we're stalkers because we do that, but at the end of the day, no, you're just thinking outside the box. That's what makes you a top producer and not the same as everybody else.
Hi, everybody. Jose Luis Morales here. Welcome back to another episode of the Residual Real Estate Agent. Today, we've got a very special guest. His name is JP Pena. He is a real estate agent. He is based out of Los Angeles, California. Today, he is going to be educating us on the VA process. He's going to be letting us know how you can qualify for a VA loan. What is the VA loan? And then he's going to be also going over the offer process as to what you can do to get your offer accepted if you're a VA buyer, and giving us tips and tricks. Welcome to the show, JP. How are you?
Pretty good, brother. Pretty good. Thank you for having me here. Excited, man. Anytime it's VA related and we could get some information out there to help veterans out, bro, you know I'm all for it, man.
Sounds good, man. So for our viewers out there who don't know who is JP Pena, and how did you stumble across this world of real estate, and specifically the passion for helping our military clients?
That's a great question, man. So, I started with a vision to do architectural design. In fact, before I joined the Marine Corps, I had a full scholarship to go to Otis, which is a very well-known architectural school. So I signed up in the military as a reservist so I could have my school paid for, play around in the weekends, Marine, and then continue my education doing architectural stuff. Well, in 2003, when the whole invasion happened, I ended up getting activated, and they took the reserve position out and it became active duty. So when I got out, I was like, man, I'm 27 years old now. To go back to school, that's going to be kind of tough. I had a kid on the way, and somebody said, dude, if you do real estate, you could design homes, you could build homes, you could do all this stuff. And it's basically the same thing. And you get a license and you get paid more money. And that's sort of how I started. In fact, I started doing loans first, subprime time, which was one of the most craziest times. But I learned so much about real estate at that point. And eventually, after years of trying to get this real estate business locked down, I realized that the best way to really move forward is finding a niche. And that's when I decided to go the VA route.
That's awesome, man. Good for you. Okay, good. So let's jump right into it. For the people that don't know, what is a VA loan and who does it benefit?
So one big misconception out there is that the VA itself does the lending, which is not true. Look at it as the VA is just basically a big brother, a big cosigner that says, Jose Luis, I'm backing you up. If anything happens, if it defaults, I will take part of that. I would, compensate it, but I'm looking out for you. So it's just, think of it as a big co-signer for anybody that has served actively more than 90 days in the military. You are able to utilize this product now to purchase a home, 100% down payment. So a down payment is not required. It's not FICO driven. In fact, the lowest FICO I have done for VA is 565. Now that does fall under bank overlays, which is a whole different topic in itself. But for any veterans that has served, there's definitely a ton of possibilities for it. And as long as you have served, as long as you have an honorable discharge, you're able to utilize that product.
That's crazy. And the awesome thing is it only takes 90 days for you to be eligible for the benefits, it sounds like. So meaning if somebody...
Yeah, so the majority of service members, so the way it works is depending on what your job is in the military, there's some, for example, I was infantry, right? So if you go through infantry, by the time you're done with boot camp and you go to school of infantry, that's already over 90 days. So that already basically gives you that qualification. Different MOSs is going to be different timeframes, especially if you're a reserve. There is a certain time during the year that you're going to do more days as active duty on your reserve so that you can utilize that as well. As long as it's consecutive, you're able to qualify for it, and then you can utilize it as well.
And then aside from the 100% financing, what are some of the other benefits as it relates to the financing for a VA home buyer?
A lot more lenient ratios. I've seen DTIs go as far as almost 61%. I've seen some at 62%. Again, this all falls back to the bank and their overlays, meaning what the bank is willing to play with. But if you look at the VA handbook itself, there's really no exact guidelines saying that you have to meet this number or you have to meet this certain FICO in order for it to happen. The other big thing that just got passed just 2 years ago was that there's no more caps. Now, before there was something called county limits. So if you were in LA, for example, it was you were capped at almost 700,000. Depending on the county, some were 478,000. Well, that got eliminated. So as of now, there's no more cap limits whatsoever. So as long as you qualify for that mortgage, you could buy a $2 million, $3 million, $4 million VA home loan. Last year alone, I did 4 VA loans that were over $3 million. Some of them did put a down payment, some of them didn't. If you strategize it the right way, it will make sense. If you have a different strategy on how you're going to exit off of that property, which is a whole different discussion in itself, but there is possibilities on how you could go up to that amount. Now, the highest VA loan to date done by the VA was $8 million in Malibu. So definitely possible.
Wow. Good, man. Awesome. And then so I think this is a misconception, bro. Sometimes people go to a lender and they're like, well, that lender didn't qualify me. But the reason they don't get qualified is because of all the bank overlays. For those viewers that don't know what a bank overlay is, what is it? What is that?
It's basically additional guidelines that the bank puts in front of whatever program there is. So let's say that we're at Jose Luis Bank, and in order to get a VA loan, Jose Luis Banks has these certain guidelines that have to be met, and only for their investors, in order for them to be profitable, in order for them to make money. And some of them could be a certain FICO, hey, we won't do anything lesser than this amount, right? Or debt to income ratio, we won't do anything aside of this amount, whatever we want to keep more conservative, less risk, and stuff like that. So any overlays is basically that extra step that banks put on top of a program in order for them to protect themselves.
So basically, in other words, you may not qualify with one bank, but you may qualify with another bank, just depending on the overlays that bank has. And I think that's where there's a lot of misconception, because people are like, well, I don't qualify because of X, or I don't qualify because of Y. But just because you don't qualify with one lender, that doesn't mean that you won't qualify with another. So as it relates to interest rate, is the interest rate more competitive, like lower with a VA product typically? And also, what about mortgage insurance? Because I know that with FHA, if you put 3.5% down, you got to pay for mortgage insurance. Do you have mortgage insurance with a VA loan as well?
So there is no mortgage insurance with VA, which is great. And to your second question, interest rates are as competitive as any conventional loan. In fact, I've seen at times where the VA loan is actually lower than what it would be for a conventional loan. And the other good topic that you brought in was the misconception in regards to different lenders, different banks. Now, the key issue is, one, yes, you're right. Depending on the bank overlay, who you go with, depending what your situation is. This is why it's important that when you have your consultation with your realtor, you be as transparent as possible to inform them what your financials really look like, what your FICO looks like, if you have any assets, any reserves or stuff like that. Although it's not required, it does help you in the long run if you have a better structural financial. So your realtor can now take that and determine what lender would be the right approach for you. Who should they send your loan to? The other thing also is that many lenders out there are just not aware of the product itself. I still get calls from agents that tell me, hey, so I thought you said there was no cap limit, because I'm talking to this lender here and they're telling me that because of this county, they can only go to this amount. I'm like, that's not true. So then I have to go to the lender's VA manual, pull up the section, whatever, snapshot it and take it to them and show them like, look, no, there's actually no cap. You're absolutely wrong. I have just last week, I had an agent call me from San Diego that they're in escrow, and the lender was actually trying to figure out why there was no mortgage insurance on a VA product. And for me, I'm like, dude, if you're in escrow and this lender is still trying to figure out why there's no mortgage insurance, you need to switch ASAP. Like, that's a problem. So it just goes again that if your realtor is well educated, he's going to guide you to the right person to work with in order to get you approved.
That's awesome, man. Cool, man. What about closing costs? Are there any benefits to a VA buyer in terms of closing costs? Do they pay the traditional closing costs? Are there some things that VA buyers are allowed to pay and some things that they're not allowed to pay?
So there is non-allowables, allowables in today's market though. Very hard to go that route. Back in the days, you could ask a seller and be like, hey, we need this much for closing cost credit, at least for non-allowables. It would fly. Right now, very hard. What we have done is I have built a great team of lenders, relationship with lenders, in which we're crediting in that closing cost in there. Therefore, it offsets that amount. The other thing too is if the veteran is service connected, anything over 10%, they don't pay a funding fee for the VA. So the funding fee, what it is basically a fee that recurs every time you use the VA product to maintain that program available for other veterans. So if you're service connected, more than 10%, you don't pay that funding fee. If you are, it's a certain percentage. I believe it starts at like 275%, and then it could go up from there, depending on how many times you used it and the loan amount and stuff like that.
What does that mean, being service connected?
If you're disabled. So if you have served and you have been found service connected, you have disability based on certain injuries that you received while in combat, while overseas, then that's considered service connected. So if you're a realtor out there, the first questions you want to ask an agent, a veteran, when you're pre-qualifying them is, one, are you service connected? That's going to play a big part. In fact, it'll save them thousands of dollars when it comes to that closing cost. And there's been many occasions when I get a call from a veteran who's like, hey, I just bought a house and the realtor never told me about not paying for this funding fee, and I'm 100% disabled. So that's a big issue right there, because it should have been caught. Now, the other most important thing that realtors have to be aware of is a DD-214. You have to know how to read a DD-214. That's basically the form that indicates if the member was actually in service or not. Did he serve? Was he discharged honorably? I'll give you another example. There's this agent that calls me. They're trying to help out this veteran. They've been trying to make this happen for 8 months. The first thing I said is, send me a copy of that DD-214. I look at it and it clearly says that he was discharged dishonorably for drug use. That guy's not going to get a VA loan. And the fact that they've been trying to push it for 8 months when she should have just read that little caption there, could have saved her all that time.
Wow, that's crazy, man. Imagine being in that position where you think you're going to get it. And then, so let me ask you this. How does somebody find a good agent or a good team of like a lender? Because it sounds like if you don't really understand the VA loan or the VA products, you can literally be running in circles thinking that you've got a deal and then you really don't have a deal. Like, what would you say is some tips and advice? Because I know that there's a lot of agents that sell a lot of homes, but maybe they don't have that special knowledge like you do.
Yeah. So see, the interesting thing is that it's not a hard deal to do. It's quite simple, but when everything aligns the right way, just like anything. I mean, you ever done a probate deal, a trust deal? We might have done it with our eyes closed, but then you get that one where it's just, now you get one with the obstacles, the hurdles, the headaches, and the family members coming out of everything. It's the same thing with a VA deal. If everything aligns, and let's just say you got that one off that just everything was perfect, you might feel like, oh, this is great. It's easy. I did it with my eyes closed. Let's go to the next one. It's when you start getting with the issues. For example, issues with a DD-214, issues with their PCSing. PCSing means if they're actually in active duty right now and they're relocating. That's a whole different process. I got a couple of vets right now that are coming from Dubai, from Afghanistan, that they're relocating. PCSing. That's a whole different animal now that you got to take on when it comes to servicing those members. So my biggest advice is, one, first of all, it's one of the best niches to work, not only if you're a service member yourself, but even if you're not, because veterans are one of the most loyal customers you're ever going to have. Right now, we're dealing with this whole buyers that, hey, I didn't get my offer accepted 1, 2nd, 4th, 5th time. Great, I'm moving to somebody else. Where a veteran is going to be like, hey, let's reset, let's debrief. What do we need to do to like make this happen? They're always going to communicate. As long as you're putting in the work, they're going to be the most loyal clients you're ever going to have. And they will always call you when it comes to them to upgrade, to sell, to want to do something else, consult, even when they want to refinance. I have veterans call me and, hey, JP, do you think it's a good time to refinance? And if I do, who do I call? And how do I make sure you're being taken care of too if I use them? Like that's one of the most amazing traits of working with veterans. So if you're a veteran and you're looking for an agent, always ask those questions. Have you ever dealt with a VA deal? Like what were some of the obstacles that you dealt with? How did you fix those obstacles? Do you have a great relationship with the VA itself? For all the realtors out there, I'll give you a great hint right now. You have to know the Arizona origination phone number for the VA. If you have any questions, you could always call them. They're there to help agents, and agents don't know this. If you call them directly, they'll guide you through any deal that you have VA related and tell you what you need to do to structure it. I have even called them even when I have issues with an underwriter for a deal, and they'll tell me what to tell the underwriter so we can make sure we get that going. So knowing those communications, knowing who to call, knowing the in and outs is just going to help you service that member better.
How does somebody get that phone number?
It's you just look up Google the VA Arizona Origination Center. Arizona covers everything on the western side. It's a 1-800 number. You call and it'll basically ask you for the veteran's name, the file number if you have it, if you could get that from the lender. Man, like I'm very hands-on, bro. Like any lender that has done VA deals with me, they'll tell you that I'm like that one asshole that, dude, like JP will fucking be on you because I'll call them out on anything that's not right, bro. I'd be like, no, that's wrong. You did that wrong. Or well, really, they'll question me, or the processor. And those are the best ones because then I'll call the VA itself and then I'll put them on two-way and then they'd be like, oh man, JP, you were right. Okay, well, we'll do that. You know, we'll take care of it. So, I mean, again, it's just, that's my passion, bro. 80% of my business is helping vets. And so I'm always going to go like above and beyond to make it happen. But it's great information for any agent that's out there that's willing to help out veterans. Or if you're close to a base, I know you're in Ventura, you got Port Hueneme right there. Yeah. So, I mean, that's, again, just knowing, and also knowing who to contact in Port Hueneme. Like every base has a designated PCS center. And in most agents, I'm giving you some of my private tools here, bro.
I love it, bro. I'm making notes.
Every base has a PCS center. A PCS center runs everything in the base related to relocation. So what most people don't realize is this. They are thousands and thousands and thousands of veterans relocating monthly. Monthly, bro. Let that sink in. This is where I started. Like, I do high end, right? At first, when I got my high-end checks, I was like, hell yeah, this is great. Josh Altman is a good friend of mine. In fact, I handle all of Josh's outside Beverly Hills area. And a lot of it is veterans that they don't take. Now, I'm not going to call them and be like, yo, Josh, like, build a bigger team and have them handle this. I'm going to keep on receiving that all day. I'm like, send it to me. But this is the thing. I'm cashing checks every month while they're having to wait months just for a check. So if you could build off of that niche and you're in the area, neighborhoods or bases where you could be that one person that they could call to for all these relocations, bro, you're in itself just killing it based on that. Yeah, it's numbers.
You said something earlier saying that you guys are getting creative with the allowables and non-allowables, that you guys are factoring it in with the lender just because of the competitive marketplace. What does that mean? And does that mean that the lender is just covering those non-allowables, meaning that the VA is not allowed to pay for those? And do all lenders do that, or is that something that an adjustment that we have that agents may consider making because of the way that the market has been for a long time now?
It's just like anything, man. You got to problem solve, and I think that in today's market, especially when you have buyers like veterans where sometimes they do depend on those credits. You have the majority of them that just have enough for that closing cost. Very few are very well off with seasoned money in the bank. So you have to find a partnership, and in this case, your lender, in which you're willing or he's willing to play with you in order to cover some of this cost. So what we have done is we have two lenders who we referred the majority of our VA deals. And what we worked on is that we will provide some of our commission in order to cover that closing costs.
That's awesome. And obviously that helps them get their offer accepted. There's a lot of misconceptions about VA loans. So like I'll talk to sellers and they'll be like, oh, I don't want a VA loan, because they think that the VA loan is going to ask for a lot more things than a traditional buyer. So especially in a marketplace where there's very limited inventory, I would sometimes see VA offers get pushed to the bottom of the pile because of that. So as a real estate agent, you closing deals, what are some of the tips and tricks that maybe you can give agents and also clients to be able to increase the chances of getting their offer accepted as well too?
Yeah. So one thing that we absolutely can't control is the appraisal right now. And I think that's the number one question that we're going to have with any buyers that are not fully reserve season in the bank, meaning that they have more than enough to cover any differences plus their closing costs. So as a seller, their biggest concern is, well, if this doesn't appraise, how are we going to make this happen? Right. What has worked for me is one, the transparency. I'm very honest upfront of where we stand financially, but most importantly is how we present our offer. I think that's what has set us apart. On my last VO transaction, it was two twins, Army veterans. They had some money in the bank, nothing crazy, about 40,000 total, but we were not the highest offer. In fact, they had a total 42 offers, and we were like somewhere on the 32-ish, something around there. Like, man, it wasn't. But so this is what I did. And normally I have a template for this on my email. One, I always do include a bomb video to all the listing agents, not only introducing myself, but I want to highlight the fact that I am a VA expert. So I kind of educate them. Two things happen when I do that. One is they always have questions regarding the VA. So that tells me that they're not fully informed of what the VA product is. And the second is the concern that the sellers are going to have. So I'm getting two things out of that. One, I'm getting all the problems and questions that they're going to have, in which I CC my lender on it already. So we're able to address these and answer these right at the moment of negotiating. So this sort of sits well with them now, because now they're like, all right, he's talking to me, he's explaining everything. And normally it always comes down to that appraisal. So JP, we love everything. This looks great. It sounds amazing. Your lender called me. They're fully approved. We get it. You're not the highest offer. Can we meet here? But if we meet here, how do we deal with this appraisal issue? So normally it just comes down to the same thing. Hey guys, we're willing to pay up to this much. If they're able to do so, if they're able not to do so, then it is what it is. This is all they're going to get. But I feel that communication up front and educating that agent is really what gets us in the door and eventually gets us to home.
I think it's so important, bro. What you just hit the nail on the head with that. Because I think if you can educate the real estate agent and give them certainty, bro, what they're looking for is certainty that you're going to get to the finish line. And as an agent, if you can do that, I think that's so powerful. Now, when you're writing VA offers, is the VA veteran allowed to pay for like termite? Are they allowed to pay for any lender required repairs? And how is that structured in the deal as well too? Because
So if you asking for termite on the RPA, somebody does have to pay for it. That's normally the rule of thumb with FHA and VA. As long as it's not on the contract, whoever pays for it, it doesn't matter. Now, let's just say that you do put it in there. You're thinking, hey, we're going to ask for it. Let's see what happens. And then the seller comes back and says, no, you know what? We're not going to do this. We're not going to go that route. Anybody can pay it at that point. It's been either I paid it a few times. The buyer has paid it a few times. Whatever we got to do to make the deal happen. Normally it's the route we take on that, but there's nothing in stone saying that the buyer or the seller itself has to pay.
You know, kind of what I'm noticing about you, bro, you've got like whatever needs to happen to get the deal done. That's kind of the mentality that you have to have, because it sounds like there's going to be obviously hiccups that come along the way, and just kind of working with somebody, because a lot of agents kind of draw their foot in the line. Like, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing this or that. And I think it's the wrong approach. What happens if somebody is out of the country, bro? I think I've had situations like this where the person who qualifies for the VA loan is out of the country, but then their spouse is in California. Can the spouse sign on their behalf, or can the spouse take care of the paperwork? Like, let's say they're in active duty.
Good question. Normally there will be a power of attorney for the spouse or whoever they left appointed who could sign any documents. If they have access to email, which most people still do, depending on what their job is in the military, they will have access to email in which they could sign. Hours might change. We just did a deal right now with the guy. He's in Africa. And we did everything through FaceTime, through Zoom. In fact, when we gave him the keys, we did it out through Zoom. So that was pretty awesome. But, anybody, as long as they have a power of attorney, they could sign. And if they have ability to sign through email, they'll do it. But dude, I want to real quick, because you mentioned the fact that, you're saying, dude, you'll do whatever it takes to just, make it happen. Bro, I think that, look, it's not even just VA itself. I think it's this business period.
In general, yeah.
In general. And I think most agents, that's where they limit themselves. I'll tell you one thing that I do admire about you, bro. And I always said this whenever, I know we met a few times, but anybody I spoke with, I always said that there's few individuals that run their business like a true business in this business. If that makes sense. Many are very just transactional, meaning they're only chasing that next escrow, right? But what separates you, what separates the Josh Almans, the Aaron Kurtmans, all these other people, regardless of where they work or what market they are, is that they have built a structure, bro. They have built a structure that it's basically that, whatever it takes to make something happen, and let's just roll on to the next one type mentality, right? So when I run to agents and they tell me, well, we don't want to do VA because it's so complicated, or we don't want to do this because it's this, or because we don't get paid. I have heard excuses. I have heard veterans call me and tell me the agents were charging them as buyer's agents because they felt that the commission they were going to make was not enough. So when I get that shit through my mind, bro, that's really what gets me going. And I say, you know what, screw this, bro. Like, one, not only are we able to do what we're doing here because of service members like them that are out there fighting, risking their lives on a daily. And we're here, I'm at the comfort of my home, drinking a Celsius. You're in this amazing studio sitting down, and we're here Zooming or, whatever you want to call it. But there's out there, dudes putting their life on the line just for us to have this freedom. So for me, it's like we owe it to them. And in the end of the day, the value that we're providing, and if we could educate other agents to see that as well, then we're truly making an impact. So, I mean, whatever it takes to make it happen, bro. That's just the way I see it.
I agree 100%. Do you ever, so I've done this where I feel like if the seller of a property is also active duty or past duty or military, I almost feel like there's like a special connection whenever they see a military offer, almost like they want to repay the favor, like be like, hey, look, I've had sellers because they're like, it doesn't matter like if that's the highest offer or not. I'm okay with taking a little bit less to be able to help out another, almost like a comrade almost.
Yeah.
So I almost feel like a good strategy is as well too for agents is to figure out if there's any ties in the family to military or any sort of military ties, because I feel like that would increase the chances of them getting their offer accepted if you can make that connection between maybe a son that's in the military, maybe a father that was in the military, maybe something like that. Do you ever feel that writing letters and trying to make that connection somewhat helps? Obviously, it's if you're $100,000 off on the price, it's rare, but I see when it's a closer margin that almost that sort of camaraderie does have an impact.
For every VA offer we make, we don't do letters, we do videos. So we actually have a bomb video with the veteran itself, whether he's overseas or with his family, and very quite simple. We try to not to, overstep boundaries or break any laws. Just kind of, hey, my name is JP. I served in the United States Marine Corps. Very interested in your house. This is my family. Just a little kind of glimpse of that, and then paste it in there. But look, I'll give you guys a couple ways how you could determine though. So one thing that we do is if we do have a veteran buyer, and let's say he's looking in, I don't know, let's just say, Pasadena, I'll have my title rep run a list of any VA loan in the area that's not currently on the market, or if it's on the market, whatever it is, just run a full title search of any VA loan. And then we start hitting those properties first. Assuming that there's nothing on the market that they like. But you're right. We also want to kind of find who the veteran sellers are first, and then pitch them the fact that we have a buyer interested in their properties. So that's the one step we do. And then the second thing you could do is be observant. So if you're showing a property, what are you seeing? Look for certain details. If you see a plaque, airborne, or, Marine Corps, American flag, or anything like that, you already know, okay, there's something here. How do I attach it? There's a good app called Spazio. People use it for open houses. I use it for open house, but at the same time, what I'll do is I'll pull the title of that property. Let's say I went in there, they had American flags, they're very patriotic. I'll get the name, I'll plug into Spazio, it'll give me their social media, everything, and then I'll tie to see if there's a veteran in there. And if there is, I'm like, dude, done deal. I got this for sure. It's locked in. So I know how to approach this, So everything is a strategy in this business, bro. Like, I mean, People think
I
we're
agree.
stalkers because we do that, but in the end of the day, no, you're just thinking outside the box. That's what makes you a top producer and not the same as everybody else.
And I think that's what it takes, bro. It takes like, I remember like there was a client specifically where we were able to get their offer accepted by making that connection, bro. And sometimes like most agents think about it as black and white versus, hey, look, how can we be strategic about this and how can we increase the chances of helping this family out? I'm going to retract a little bit, bro. What is a certificate of eligibility? Is that the same thing? That's not the same thing as a DD.
No. So the DD-214 is basically just a document that states that you did serve in the military. The certificate of eligibility is the certificate the VA gives you after you went through your approval process. So you submitted your DD-214, you went through the whole, submitted all your documents, everything. Then basically you get the certificate of eligibility saying, hey, yes, he does, fully qualify for this loan. He's good to go. Now, there is a part on the certificate of eligibility that says eligible amount or something within those terms, and it's always a number. Most agents get that confused and think that's all they're entitled to. That's not necessarily what it means. In fact, even the VA has said it, kind of disregarded, because it really falls more onto properties in the Midwest or areas where you could buy a home for like $60,000, and then it basically tells you that you still have certain amount of entitlement left to be able to purchase another home. So in those areas where home prices are so cheap, you can in a sense have even 3 VA loans on a house at the same time, as long as it meets within that guideline. In California, very hard to do because most likely one house alone will take the majority of that. But you can use it again. So a VA loan is not something that you utilize once and then that's it. You no longer use it. You could just simply refinance out of it, get the VA name out of the loan, and then it gets reinstated, so you're able to use that VA loan again.
That's all. So you can basically use it multiple times. What about like if you refinance, or what if you don't refinance? Can you turn a VA loan into a rental property?
You can. There's ways to do it. Some we could disclose here, some we can't. But let's just say that it is possible if your neighborhood is an endangered zone, or you feel that your life is not safe anymore. You can turn that into a rental. You could buy up to 4 units with it as well, as long as you live in one of the units and then you realize that there's enough burglaries happening in your neighborhood where you want to rent that out. And so therefore you could rent that out as well, and then just refinance out of it and use the VA again. So
it's almost like the FHA. As long as you have a valid reason for moving out of the property, the underwriter would look at that and allow you to do that. What about cosigners? Like I know that a spouse can be on the loan. What about a cosigner? Like, let's say that you found a property and the cosigner is not VA. Can you have non-VA buyers as cosigners, or does it have to be?
There is a way you could have a non-serving veteran as a cosigner. It's a bit complex and difficult. The other way that it would just be more allowable would be using if you're like the veteran and you passed away, so your widow, family members may at that point, which is also gets complex. I personally have never seen it happen. At least here in California, I have heard stories of it happening in like Texas or stuff like that. So I don't know if, again, it falls because of the price difference. But basically, rule of thumb is if you're married, you could use your wife as a cosigner. If you're not married, unless they're another service member, it's very hard to do so.
So I need clarification on one thing. You said that you could have up to 3 VA loans at a time, and you said that has to do with the VA eligibility. So like the eligibility will tell you how much you're eligible for. And then if you're in an area where prices are significantly low and they don't add up to that amount, you can basically have multiple VA loans. But in California, if you've already used your eligibility, then unless you refinance out, then you can't use it.
Yeah. So basically, in a nutshell, what it means is that the VA puts a number out, right? Your certificate of eligibility basically just says Jose Luis is able to utilize this loan. That's all that does. It's basically a certificate. The number in the bottom of that, though, really represents the amount that you can still utilize. But in California, because prices are so high, like you mentioned, it would basically eat up every possible eligibility that you would have on that certificate. But if you live like in some of these Midwest countries where you could buy a house for like 60,000, 40,000, and you look at that certificate and it still shows 160,000, available there entitlement, then you can still buy another property with that remainder 160,000.
That's awesome. And can you go above that number? Like for example, like let's say that number is 500,000 and that house is 600,000, but you qualify for the 600,000. Is it possible to go above that number in California, or is that like almost like the limit of the ceiling of what you would?
No. So this is where that's a good question, because it's something that always gets, it's confusing. So there's no cap in regards to what you could buy. It's just the way that they word it is basically, let's say that you got approved for $1 million, right? So that $1 million is staying to your name right now, to your eligibility. If you spend $1 million, then that's it. That's all you're getting. But let's say that you were buying in Texas or somewhere like that, where that eligibility is a lot less, but you still have money left over from whatever that eligibility was, then you're able to utilize that up to that certain amount only, because it still goes off to what your buying power can be, what you can afford. It's just here, it's worded a bit different because of the way of cost of living, more expense, all that kind of stuff. So therefore, it just falls into a different guideline when it comes to underwriting that VA process.
Yeah. And what is that number based upon? Is that based on the number of years that you served? Is that based on a certain rank of where you served? Or is it based on something else? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, it's not rank. Actually, I'm not even sure how they would do that. Again, I would say we hardly deal with that here in California, but I'm pretty sure it would have to be how many times you utilized it or something like that. I would have to check the VA lender handbook and see exactly how they would strategize that.
I love it. Cool. What about like if you're the spouse of somebody that served our country and that person is no longer here, but never really utilized their VA benefits? Can that spouse utilize the VA benefits on behalf of that person?
Yes. If you are a widow of somebody that's not here no longer, then you're able to utilize that VA benefit.
This is awesome, man. Cool. Anything else that you think would be helpful for or on this topic, like for VA people, or any closing thoughts on this?
No, it's just the fact that I think it's a great product and hardly utilized. I think the last report that I saw from the VA itself stated that only 62% of veterans are actually using their VA product. And a lot of it is because they're not informed. In fact, I was part of an organization that included the veteran checkmark on the 1003 for the loan application, because before it wasn't there. It just stated if you were a citizen, if you basically your race and stuff like that, but it never mentioned if you're a veteran. So if a veteran went to a bank and said, hey, I want a home loan, the first thing they'll pitch you is an FHA loan. They would never say, oh, by the way, there's this VA product that you qualify for serving and you could utilize it. So now, because if they check mark the fact that they're a veteran on the 1003, now the loan officer has to explain to them the fact that there is a product out there. Now, there still is a lot of steering out of it. And I get numerous calls from veterans that say, hey, like, why am I in an FHA loan when I could have gone VA? My lender said that this was the best option. And I'd be like, wait, what? No, like send me your breakdown. And I'll like compare them. And I'd be like, this makes absolutely no sense. So it still falls up to us, the agents, to educate veterans out there and inform them of what they have and how to properly utilize it, because they could create amount of wealth just based on that. The majority of veterans that I have helped started with a $250,000, $300,000 home and have built amazing wealth to now. I mean, wow, if I could count how many I have got to $1 million already on a purchase, something they never thought they would do, and all because they bought at the right time. Great investments, great properties that they build equity on, and now able to translate that to something better and build something better while still having equity. Or some even they buy units and are cash flowing now. And they're like, dude, I never thought I would ever do this because I thought I needed 20% to be able to purchase something like this. So, man, it's up to us to educate them, and it's a great benefit, man.
Bro, this has been such a good interview, man. I appreciate you coming on. If people wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way for people to connect with JP Pena?
Yeah, my email, jp.pena@compass.com, or on Instagram, which is at thejppena.com.
I have enjoyed this interview tremendously, my man. I hope that our viewers found as much value as I did. If you are new to the channel and you found value in this interview, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you feel that this interview would help a fellow veteran out and kind of just share some knowledge with them, our purpose here is to educate. Make sure to hit that share button. This was episode number 117 of the Residual Real Estate Agent Show. We had JP Pena, real estate agent, entrepreneur with Compass Real Estate. He's based out of Los Angeles. If you have any VA related questions, he's definitely the person that you want to talk to. I just want to say thank you to all of our viewers out there, and thanks JP Pena for being on the show as well.
My pleasure, brother.